How much of traumatic brain injury do you see in your clinic? And you'd mentioned that that can be quite difficult because it's both physical and mental and emotional. There's a whole lot going on there. How do you deal with it at the Buddhi Clinic?
Traumatic brain injury is one of the more difficult things that you have to deal with because you're left with somebody whose brain is potentially damaged. So let me tell you a patient story. This was a young IT professional in his 30s who was in a road traffic accident and had a fairly serious injury to the front of his brain in that accident. He was operated upon. He was deeply unconscious in a major hospital for several weeks. And finally, when he got discharged from hospital, he was in a confusional state, a delirium. He was aggressive, violent, and he actually had to be tied to a bed in order to keep him quiet because otherwise he would run around all over the place and he would actually get into altercations with people. He didn't even know what he was doing most of the time. So that was the level of disability he was left with. He had no memory as to who it was in front of him, didn't recognize his parents, didn't recognize his wife, didn't recognize his business partner, anyone. So that's the condition he came to us in. And it took us a good part of 2 weeks to sort of calm him down and get him to a point where he could sit across a table and engage with us. Now, the happy story is that working with him over several weeks, we actually managed to return him to work. And he's actually migrated back to the UK to work as an IT professional now and is holding his job there very well. So that was the good part of the story. But what did that take? He needed a full course of brain stimulation sessions. He needed several sessions of cognitive retraining with a psychologist. He needed, his family needed several caregiver support sessions for them to understand how to work with this guy. He had sessions of Ayurveda, naturopathy, and yoga, which helped him calm down, help improve his sleep, improve his lifestyle. He needed physiotherapy because he had physical disability. So, in a sense, this man needed something like 200 hours of therapy. But the good news was at the end of that, he went from being completely dysfunctional, the way I described him, to somebody who's able to go back to work and who's able to lead a very normal life. Now, this is what happens to a lot of people with traumatic brain injury, and many of them do not get this kind of comprehensive care. Many live with disabilities which they assume they have to. So I actually met someone a couple of days ago who works on an oil rig and has had a traumatic brain injury while working on the oil rig. And he's had persistent symptoms concerning his vision, concerning his moods, concerning various other aspects of him for the last 2 years. It was not a major head injury in his case. It was a minor head injury, but it's left him with a fair amount of disability and he's working with difficulty. He's managed to hold on to his job with difficulty. And the number of people you'll meet out there who've had minor head injury, like this gentleman I'm talking about, and who are left with problems which they don't seem to be getting over, which become real bugbears for them, is very large. So there needs to be an awareness because, we are the road traffic accident capital of the world. And there needs to be an awareness that there will be problems for a lot of people after traumatic brain injury. Something as simple as why brain injury, something as simple as a whiplash. I meet people who are symptomatic 15 years later, ever since I had my whiplash, doctor. So that's how problems can be after trauma, physical trauma. And they do need to be recognized. And the good news is you can actually help a person.
That's wonderful.